It's fiction. She works in a large house that does nonfiction and fiction, but she's been fiction that entire time. And she said that, I raised the self-publishing route with her, and she said, it's a great idea, because look at it from the publisher's standpoint. Right now, publishers are scraping to get by. They need to make enough money to keep the lights on. So anytime an author comes up to them, they're basically making a bet. Now, if that person is a famous person, like an Oprah or Bill O'Reilly, okay, they're going to generate some sales, even if they turn in a crummy book. They've got a built-in audience. I walk through the door. Who are you? Why would anybody read anything you read, even if it's the most brilliant thing ever?
And guess who Simon & Schuster is going to put their money behind? The big names. They're going to put the money behind the author that has the Food Network show, the big restaurants, the Mario Batali's. They're going to get all of the marketing money. Mm-hmm. So, there are independent authors who you've never heard of clearing up to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month because there's no middleman. They are earning, a large 70% of an ebook sale is kept by the author in the self-publishing world, where if you're publishing with a publisher, you get 25% or less. That's a big difference. So you don't have to sell 1 million books to make a living because you're making much more money with a smaller number of books. It's a lot easier to sell 1,000 books than 10,000 books, but then you keep growing. But you're getting more from that than you would from selling 1,000 books with a big publisher because you've been given an advance. You have to earn out that advance. So I'll give you an example. Typically, for a book like this, that retails at $25 a book, I get $1. This book, that ebook that retails at $4.99, not the print version, the e-version that retails at $4.99, I get over $3 a book. $3.
The difference is that one's
This was with the
publisher.
big publisher.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you have to sell. See, I'm an independent artist myself, so I toured. We did 50 shows in 50 cities. No one knew who we were. To this day, I tell you who I toured. No one knows. But we were making 70% of all profit sales. So I mean, like you can do, like you're saying, sell 10,000 books at a $4, $3 margin versus, you got to sell 100,000 books to get the 1% back for them. That's even worth any kind of money. So I definitely agree with.
What's the minimum number of books that is published on a first book?
It really depends. So for a fiction author with not a big following, probably not more than a few thousand. Modern Spice, I had 2 cookbooks before Modern Spice came out, and the first printing of this by Simon & Schuster was 5,000 bucks. But if I had a TV show or if I was Ina Garten, they probably published, maybe print 20,000 copies. Cookbooks are smaller in number than, other genres and other areas. But it just depends on how famous the person is who's doing the book.
Yeah,
So it always seems like the popularity contest is ever present, that high school thing mentality where whoever is the most popular gets bigger and better deal. It always seems that way.
You had a question in the back?
Yeah, if you're self-publishing, how do you handle advertising?
The same way a big publisher would handle it. So about a few years ago, there were no options. If you were self-publishing, other than begging people to read your work, that was pretty much advertising. Mom, can you tell your friends? Now there's so many options. So for instance, one of the most popular ones is BookBub. BookBub is an online company that's figured out, they've got I think something like 3 million readers, and you buy a spot for about $500 to $700 for a book, and their buy rate is incredible. It started with a bunch of independent writers, and now guess who's their biggest customer? The big publishing houses. So go where the readers are, advertise where your readers are. If you're writing a book about, a memoir about Afghanistan or things like that, where are your readers? I think that's the most important thing. Where do the readers hang out? And then see how you can advertise in that area, that community, that genre, where are those authors advertising?
This applies across genres
Absolutely.
too. Nowadays, because we have the internet, we have Facebook, you have Instagram. You can take out an ad.
Absolutely.
You can. I mean, like, there's just so much. I don't know what is your, like, y'all two. I don't know about you, Dr. Kevin. What's y'all's go-to DIY form of putting out your work?
Oh, geez. I inevitably create a Facebook page for the book and bug all my friends and friends of friends to follow it. Goodreads.com, you create an author page there. There are chat groups. Like, you'll find chat groups on food, American history, presidents. I mean, it gets pretty targeted. And so if you find a chat group that's, on your favorite subject, spend the time in. Don't walk in the very first chat and start flacking your book, but rather have conversations for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then, people will click through and look and go, oh, hey, this guy wrote a book. That's definitely one way to go. I think it's also valuable just to ferret out, as she was saying, the folks who have a proven interest in your topic. Like, I regularly contact small distilleries. Got a gift shop I hear? Well, I can bring you copies that are hand-signed. Would you be interested in carrying some of them? Sometimes you get yeses. Put the books, because people who are visiting distillery probably like to drink, and so, ta-da! It's obvious for them, because as we know, generally bookstores are vanishing, and that makes it quite, and what few are there have limited shelf space, so trying to get yourself in there, especially if you're at a lesser-known publisher, like this is an English publisher that's distributed by U of Chicago Press, so that's not the first thing that a Barnes & Noble is going to pick up and have on their shelf somewhere, so...
So I did something a little bit different. I mean, this is a fabulous idea. I have a friend who just wrote a book on lavender and called up all the local farmers who were selling lavender and said, can you stock my book? And was able to sell many, many copies doing that. With Karma, I did something very different. So to market this, because it's a book club read where I can see a bunch of people getting together and discussing this, there's a free cookbook that comes with this. So people just go onto my website and download a free cookbook. So when the group gets together, the book club gets together, they take the book and make dishes and sit down, and it connects them. The second thing that I did for this was what I'm wearing. A friend of mine started a jewelry business, and when she saw the cover, she said, oh, he's wearing Buddhist beads. And I said, yes, because he lives in a monastery. So she created this. I don't get any money from this. She created a line of jewelry to go with the book. So all of a sudden, we're cross-marketing each other. And at this point, we're not really exchanging dollars because we're still learning. And then I thought, I want to talk to people about this book. Like, how do I get in front of the right people with something different other than just like me standing there and people have bought tickets to eat dinner? Is there something we can do that's different? So I called a bunch of places, and I called the National Press Club. And it didn't hurt that the chef at the National Press Club was a lawyer who became a chef. So very interested in this whole career change food thing. And she said, well, let me read it. And she reads the book and she calls me and she says, what if we did a dinner based on what the guy cooks in the book? And we had you talk about how the food comes together. So we did an event at the National Press Club where they made the book come alive. And it's a form of marketing, it's a form of getting the word out, but it's not the same old, same old. It's very difficult for out of the gates, I want to get into the New York Times bestseller section. Well, good luck with that. Let's start local. And not to say that doesn't happen, it happens. I mean, look at 50 Shades of Grey, it came in from nowhere. But, for the rest of us, like literally, every day, what can I do locally? What can I do to get the word out locally? Who can I contact? Which gift shops are there? Because when Karma came out, I was like, oh, I should do a bookstore signing. I live in Tyson's. Most of the bookstores are gone. So I called Richmond, has a fabulous bookstore, and she's like, yeah, come on down, we'll do a signing here. So I went to Richmond and did a signing there, but you have to literally look for the opportunities. It's very time consuming and sometimes frustrating.
Yeah, I was wondering, to what extent have you done going on promo trips to the local markets around the the country to, you know, and appeared on national broadcasts?
So I've done, with this book, I did a lot of, all on my own. I had to have my own marketing budget for that book, too. This is published by a big publisher. I paid for the publicist. So I've done NPR, I've done national TV, I've done Martha Stewart Living Radio, a lot of that. I've done Talk of the Nation, I've done Guy Raz, all of them.
If you've ever done Oprah or any of those,
No.
you know you have to give out a free book to everybody in the audience.
Well, the publisher usually takes care of that. And when you're on Oprah, you can afford to give out 100 free books. But I think a lot of it is, you know, things you do. The publisher will do something in the first 3 months. That's a typical publishing cycle. In the first 3 months, they'll help, and then after 3 months, they're like, okay, we're on to the next one now. That's just how the cycle moves for marketing. But if it's your own baby, you're never going to let it die. Like, this book is in 3 book clubs this coming week. And then on October 12th, I'm presenting this book at the Smithsonian. We're doing an event with the Smithsonian with a dinner followed by a book signing. It's a year-old book. If this was another publisher's book, they'd be like, see ya. But I'm working on it every day, getting out to book clubs, getting out to places, coming out to, you know, talk to folks like you to get people interested in my work.
Did you do fall for the book at the convention center this past September?
No, but I'm doing a lot of Fall for the Book events continues for several months. And so I'm working with the Library of Virginia, and I'm doing a lot of stuff in the Loudoun County Libraries coming up. So it's not just one event, they do multiple events. But I've done signings at the National Press Club. That's where we met, at the University Club.
Yeah, University Club, yeah.
A lot of local events. And yeah.
Is there a central place where you can find book clubs? Or do you separate
There
your
isn't. I mean, I hired an intern at the end of the day to start looking online and start finding anything online. Facebook is a great way to find book clubs. I've Skyped with book clubs. I've called into book clubs. So instead of spending the money to travel to California to talk to 12 people or do 3 book clubs, I'll Skype in. They don't care. They've made the food, everything's there. They've got me on screen, like I'm here, but just on screen. Saves the travel amount and actually helps me make a profit on my books. Because unless someone else has got the expense account, you won't turn a profit quickly.
I got a question. It's for both of y'all, but I'll start with you, Kevin. I see that you like write all the time. Like you're writing for the Art Institute. I know you have your blog, Monica. And I'm like, how do you like get so many words like and switch? Because we do a lot of fishing stuff. You ever think about doing like a fishing book? Like how do you switch?
Sure.
How do you keep all your brain of writing without getting overbogged by all your interests? That's for both of y'all.
Yeah. No, I've crazily enough, in the last year I bought a flute because I was like, I'm going to learn to play the flute, because I learned to play the piano a little bit as a kid and then dropped it, and it's one of those things I feel like I don't appreciate music enough, and so I have to teach myself a musical instrument. And so of course with 4 young children and busy career, I got about this far on my flute training. Yeah, it's a challenge. I guess for me it's just a habit. Every day I'm writing something. I just do. I mean, it'd probably be better if I exercised every day, but I write every day, and whether it's something is like just say something on Twitter very concisely, with a nice twist. I mean, spending a little time on that. Okay, it's just one sentence, but do it well, or if it's like, oh, good God, I owe a column to the American Spectator this week, due tomorrow. Okay. Time to just plant your butt in the chair and do it for 2 hours. I confess, I'm not one of these people who's like, I will go running to write. More often than not, I'm happy to run away from writing. It's never easy for me, so I really kind of have to hold a gun to my head and make myself do it. But that's become a habit, just like, okay, do it, and just sit and just pound something out. And because I've been doing it for, I think I wrote my first newspaper piece in like 1998, non-school newspaper piece. And so, yeah, it's almost 20 years of just pounding out prose, often on things that I didn't know much about. You develop techniques and a certain comfort and a little bit of fearlessness about essaying on things that you don't really know that well. You just do it, and in the course of the writing, you kind of learn it.
No, I agree with you. It's just you have to sit down and write. Nothing motivates people like deadlines, but also when you're an independent publisher and you've got your own house and you need a paycheck, a blank page is not bringing in a paycheck. Unless I'm writing or I'm marketing or I'm actively working, I'm eating into my own paycheck. And by having so many books now, the backlist starts selling. So when somebody reads this, they'll be like, oh, I like that. Let me see what else she's written, or let me do that. But that takes time to build. But you can only build that if you're writing every day. And that discipline is hard because real life steps in sometimes. And there's, you have to see
you
your
have 4
illness
children,
this
you
year.
have 2 children, and
Real life
Yeah.
steps in and there's a lot of stuff, but then some things are not negotiable.
I'll say that there are times that if I just don't feel like I have anything to say, I'll take like a good column from the magazine The Economist, and I'll just start retyping it. Just as a way of learning the technique. I mean, that's an age-old way of doing it, but sometimes I just don't feel like I have any words of my own, and so I just kind of occupy that person's voice by typing what they wrote.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden I'll go, I didn't realize he made that little move there. He was talking about this, and he ended up
Such a
over
good
there,
technique.
and then he doubled back near the end. That's a cool little structure. Okay, I just learned something about
Such a good
structure.
technique.
How can I do that? And then I'll just pick a topic, even if it's not something I'm going to publish, and I just go do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do, do-do-do. Hey, I almost got that technique. Next time, maybe I will get it.
Such a good technique.
At what stage do you think about steps towards publishing and talking with publishers when you complete it, like a book, or do you do it before you're finished a certain amount of it,
Sure.
halfway through, or an outline of it, or
So-
at what point do you want to consider that?
So it depends on fiction or nonfiction.
Fiction.
So nonfiction sells on proposal, so it's different. So if you wanted to write a book about how to build a house, you would write a proposal that has sample chapters, and you either go to the publisher or an agent, go to an agent, and they sell it. Fiction, the book has to be complete. It's very rare for a publisher to pick up a fiction book on proposal. Generally, unless, obviously for very famous authors, I'm sure they get several book deals just on an idea. But for most people, the fiction work has to be finished and in fairly good shape before they'll buy it.